It's 8:29. Good
Gosh.
morning to you. Now it's taxing times. As we know, it's about to get a lot more taxing once we get to the budget at the end of this month. But not if you're a young person in Portugal. The country is planning to become a low tax haven for people under 35 by giving them a tax break.
So should our government consider similar plans to help encourage young people to stay put rather than immigrate?
Are they threatening to do that?
Well, this is the thing. It's a different country. It's not Portugal, which does have a problem with youngsters leaving to travel, etc. Most British youngsters tend to stay put.
Yeah, it's not a great emigration problem, is there? Anyway, let's talk to former Labour MP and, more recently, a Reform Party candidate, Simon Danchuk, and political commentator Jack Rowlett. Good to see you both this morning. Perhaps we do need Simon to look after our young people a bit more.
Oh, absolutely. I do think we should look after our young people. I think we should build more houses. I think we should radically reduce immigration. I think we should pay them a decent wage. And I think we should encourage employers to train and upskill young people. But I don't think giving them a tax cut is the solution to this issue.
OK, and we do feel like in this country we're hammering older people. But, I mean, you know, are the government right? They do tend to be helping youngsters out more than the older people. What do you make to that, Jack? Do you think maybe this is a way forward to help youngsters get on the housing ladder, sort of like, you know, earn more money?
Yeah, I think it would be a good start. You know, if you're in your 20s or early 30s in this country, had to deal with record-breaking house prices, making housing inaccessible, had to deal with high inflation, low growth, no real terms wage growth for 20 years. And, you know, I'm in my mid-20s. If I talk to people my age, a lot of them are planning to emigrate as soon as they can possibly afford to do so, because they feel like Britain is a country where everything is expensive and nothing works. And, you know, you say governments, you know, prioritizing young people and not doing enough for the old. Actually, a lot of young people, I think, feel that the opposite is the case. They feel that they've not had access to housing. They feel that they, you know, sacrificed the early parts of their careers or their education during COVID lockdowns entirely to protect older generations. You know, the virus wasn't particularly dangerous to young people.
But forgive me, Jack, how then do you, for example, start building more houses if you're reducing the tax intake?
Well, I think we should be getting the private sector to build housing wherever possible. One of the big reasons why we haven't been able to build enough housing is not that there isn't the money to do it. It's that the planning system prevents us from building them. It's far too restrictive. So that's the issue there. And I think we need to prevent a brain drain occurring in Britain because so many young people are now talking about moving abroad. Also, if we want to cut immigration, which I know a lot of people do, then we need to be increasing our tax base at home and encouraging people to have more children here in the UK. People are having children at an older age, they're having fewer children because they can't afford to have them. And so I think a tax break policy like this might well encourage younger people to be able to have children at a younger age because they can afford to do so. And that would be good for all of us.
Simon, I mean, Jack mentioned there that sort of like, building more houses. I mean, but that is another thing that's aimed at helping youngsters, isn't it, to build more houses, getting on the housing ladder. And, you know, do you think that maybe the government are prioritising older people over younger? Because lots of our viewers don't feel that's happening.
I'm not sure the government are prioritising anybody at this moment in time. It'll be interesting to see what the budget brings. But you hit the nail on the head, Dawn. Portugal is radically different to the United Kingdom. It's only got a population of 10 million people. It's losing about 850,000 young people on a regular basis leaving the country. That's not the case in Britain. We want young people to feel paid up members of society. That's the sort of culture we should create. They should pay the same taxes as everybody else. There's no reason to give them a cut in taxation. They should be paying just what everybody else pays. That makes complete sense. But the elephant in the room is lots of young men coming into Britain illegally, being given everything on a plate. And it's no surprise that young people are turning to right-wing parties in their droves in the UK and across Europe because they're not happy with this current situation. And until we address that issue, there'll be no point in providing tax incentives or anything else.
I just wonder, Jack, because you mentioned this idea of more money for young people means more children earlier on and all the rest of it, and that's all well and good. The problem you've got with that is in the slightly longer term, isn't it? The medium term, where you're going to end up with a system which is top heavy. You're going to have a lot of younger people not paying tax as those children get older. You're going to have an ageing population who are paying less tax if they're not working, though not no tax at all. So you're going to have that middle group, anyone from 35 to 65, 70, being absolutely hammered to keep everybody else afloat.
Yeah, I think the problem is the longer you leave it, the worse that problem becomes when you finally solve it. You end up with a system that's even more top heavy and even more bottom heavy. We've left it for so long. And if we do want to cut immigration, it's a choice, really. You want to reduce immigration, we need to increase our own tax base domestically, because we do have an aging population. That aging population is going to massively increase over the next few decades. If we want high quality public services and economic growth, we're going to need to increase our own tax base. And the only way you can do that whilst cutting migration is to encourage people currently living in Britain to have more children. And they need more money in their pocket to be able to do that.
Jack, I just want to read this one message out to you from Chippy, who's watching at the moment. This younger generation has been born into a give me, give me, give me society. They want everything for now. I pay tax and national insurance in full since I was 16. I'm 60 now. Get a grip. What would you say to Chippy?
I would say if you're in your 60s now, then when you were my age, housing was 3 times the average annual income. Now it's 10 times the average annual income. If you're in your 60s now, then if you had a university education, it would have been free, whereas I'm in 70 grand of debt for mine. If you're in your 60s now, then your peak earning years would have been when taxes were low and public spending was at a decent sort of level, whereas I've graduated into a jobs market of stagnant wages. Wages haven't grown for literally as long as I can remember. So I think the idea of young people today being give me, give me, give me is based on a cheap and lazy stereotype and doesn't reflect the lived experience of people in their 20s and 30s now at all.
All right, we've got to leave it there. Jack, Simon, thank you both very much indeed.